Welcome to this week's episode, Making Remote Teams Work. In this episode, Jeff and Erin sit down with Valerie Bowden, founder of CRDLE, who's built distributed teams from scratch to unpack why most companies adopted remote work, but never built the systems to support it.
I think anybody who's had a bad time hiring remote, you just have to remember you've had bad times hiring in your office as well. But you didn't say, I'm going to stop hiring people in my office. You realized it was the person. And you have to kind of do the same thing when you're doing remote too.
Highly Adaptive is a podcast where staffing and consulting leaders learn to outpace change. Hosted by Jeff Pelliccio and Erin MacKenzie, they'll cut through the noise to bring you practical moves you could use right now to grow, adapt, and lead. Here's a number that should frame this entire conversation before we even get started. Before the pandemic, about 5% of paid workers in the US happened at home. And today, it's roughly 25%. So 1 in 4 workdays now happens outside the office. And about half of all remote capable workers are hybrid. This isn't just a trend. This isn't a phase. This is an operating model. And yet most companies are still managing distributed teams with a playbook that was written for everyone to be in the same building. That's what we're going to dig into today, because the problem was never remote work. The problem is that the system never caught up. And we've got someone joining us in the conversation who's seen exactly where it breaks down and what it looks like when you actually build it right.
I am excited to introduce Valerie Bowden, who is the founder of CRDLE, not spelled how you would think. It's spelled CRDLE, a company that she launched when I'm pretty sure 8 months pregnant, which tells you everything about how she's actually wired. So before starting CRDLE, Valerie spent 8 years living in Ethiopia after backpacking solo, probably against her parents' goodwill of doing this, but backpacking solo across 13 countries in Africa with a tent and a master's in social work. She built distributed teams from scratch, works with companies every day that are navigating the realities of making remote actually work. And she's even seen firsthand what separates the teams that thrive from the ones that quietly fall apart. Valerie, welcome to Highly Adaptive.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited today.
We are super excited. And I have to dive into this because your fun fact is in my opening. I mean, you were 8 months pregnant when you started your company. But if I back up, you backpacked alone with a tent across Africa. Okay, what was this like, and what was some of the craziest things that you've seen? I think about animals and snakes and spiders. I like snakes, but I don't do spiders. So did you have anything crazy experiences, or what was that like?
It was an amazing time. I was 25 and I did the Cape to Cairo route. So I went through 13 African countries. Wow. Loved it. I don't have any terrifying, scary experiences in terms of the fact I felt super safe and everyone I met was this is how I'd want someone to help my sister or my mom. And so I was just constantly being helped, and people were so nice in every country I was in. But I did get to do some fun adventures. In Ethiopia, I fed a wild hyena raw meat out of my mouth. So you dangle raw meat out of your mouth, and this wild hyena just kind of they just kind of circle you and they come up and they take the meat out of your mouth. And it's so scary because I think in The Lion King, we think of hyenas as being really tiny. So I was just no big deal. And then you see them, they're massive. They're so scary. And then I was I could have just lost half my face. But so I did a lot of crazy things like that. But I also did, I rafted on the Nile River. I went gorilla trekking.
Wow.
I dove with sharks. There's some really cool, fun things to do on the continent.
I want to be you. These are right up my alley. I love this so much.
We'll go back. We'll do it.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. I'm diving in even more, Jeff, for a second, because this is fun for me. And you know my adventure side. Okay, did you see crocodiles and hippos and things like this?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, definitely they're not just wandering around. You actually have to go to a nature preserve or a national park to see them. But yes. And I would say for sure the hippos feel they get way too close to the boat, where they're getting closer and closer and they go underwater and you're move the boat. We have to go. But yeah, it's super fun. There's so many cool animal experiences. So Erin, you and me will plan a trip. We'll go see some hippos, some crocodiles, some hyenas.
So Erin, are you going to feed the hyenas with meat from your mouth?
I would totally.
Really?
I think I would have to. I think we'd have to get a picture of this.
I will say, I don't know if I would be as adventurous today, but perhaps in my 20s, maybe I would have also fed a hyena from my mouth, I suppose. But I think that this speaks to your level of willingness to adapt into circumstances, which I also think is a great segue into the conversation that we're having today, which is, this remote and hybrid structure that is really so important for organizations to use, but it's sort of a shift that nobody is really adjusted for, right? So based on your launching of CRDLE, as well as your interaction and engagement with different companies, what are you seeing when companies come to you struggling with remote specifically?
That's a great question. I mean, I'm so pro remote workers. My entire team is remote, and so I love it. But I do see a lot of clients struggle. And I think the struggle comes from not really integrating remote team members in the same way that you would people who are in the office. I think a failure of training and onboarding happens first, and it really sets a negative tone. So we forget that when we're in the office, there's so many chances to be like, hey, let me look at my screen really fast. Let me show you how to do this, right? And when someone's remote, you have to do a lot more, I think, focus on just making sure that they're getting the same tools that your in-house team is getting or your in-person team is getting. But I found if you can treat your remote team members almost the same as if they were in the office, you'll get the same results and they'll feel like they're really part of your team.
So it's missing that casual interaction, right? It's missing that that in the moment, oh, I see, I've walked by your desk. Oh, hey, there's one more thing I wanted to share with you. So the current environment is really set up and orchestrated, obviously, again, to facilitate those engagements in person. But then the thing that's lacking is that ability to have that casual conversation. Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know when I've had, let's say a new assistant, I'll have her follow me for 40 hours a week on Zoom. We're just hanging out together. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes I'm I'm going to go grab lunch. I'll be back in 30. But I notice as I walk her through things, there's a lot more things that come up than it would have been if it was just a 30-minute formal training. So it is that hanging out and getting to know each other that I have found to be really helpful.
Interesting.
It's really intentional is what you're doing. I mean, which makes a complete difference there because obviously we were forced into remote with the pandemic. It was a forced adoption, and now we are in this deliberate adoption of remote for people that are going to go the remote structure, which I think is amazing because I've worked remote since 2016. So it's been a long time. But do you think that there's some leaders that resist remote because it might expose weaknesses in their management systems?
Definitely. I see a lot of managers afraid of remote because they think maybe they're watching movies all day or they're not paying attention. You can't control them. But first of all, you want really good team members that would show up no matter what. And I think there's also that fallacy of thinking if they're in the office that they're productive. And when I think back to when I used to work in an office, walking down to the coffee break, people just stopping at my desk. I was not productive necessarily in the office either. So I think it definitely, like you said, it comes down to if they're a good manager and they hire the right team members, you're going to get awesome productivity and results from a remote team.
And I think too, if you already know the problem, right? If you know that the problem is that you manage more organically, right? Through those momentary interactions. It's interesting. So in the 5 years that we've been open, Allied Insight's been open, we're a 100% remote organization. And so we haven't had the ability to get comfortable in the casual conversation. And it's all been bred on building more interactive virtual spaces so that way you can create collaboration or opportunities for collaboration. We've yet to try something that is so immersive as following someone via Zoom. But, even in the 5 years that we've been doing this, it's still not perfect. We're still looking for other ways that we can sort of manufacture that opportunity for discovery and for collaboration to be initiated from different places, right? Should it always initiate from managers? Can we create a requirement or a need for the new employee or the new team member to, have to collaborate somewhere else? So I think it's really is it's almost retraining your brain, right? To kind of think about it a little differently, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think one other thing that's really helpful is letting your remote team members meet different people in your organization, even if they wouldn't ever work directly together. Because if you think like when you're in an office, you will bump into people that you never would work with, right? So like one time, like my first job out of college, I was at a factory. So I'm bumping into like the HR, the factory workers, like different people that I didn't necessarily work directly with as like a manager. And sometimes you don't get that with remote team members. Like they end up in a silo and they only know like their direct manager. So I think just making the point to be like, okay, you're remote, but I'm going to have you connect to all of the leaders and like 4 different people from completely different random, departments that you might never meet again. But it gives you like the perspective of a greater organization, and develops that like feeling like we're still all working together.
Yeah.
That's a great, recommendation. Like even coming here at Medical Solutions Group, my first 3 weeks were set up with every single department. I might not interact with these departments every single day or even every month, or even have talked to some of them since I've started, but it was a different way to shadow and understand, to your point of separating those silos. And if I was in an office, I'm way more unproductive in an office. Like I'm a social person and I would have to like lock my office door, close the blinds, pretend I wasn't there in order to actually get stuff done, because you're talking to people, you're learning more. And I think that when which was amazing because I got to get a total broad perspective of what was going on across the business versus sitting now at my desk. But when you are in an organization that drives for removing the silos and you do have those meetings with every single department, it does create a different oversight and different operational model for sure that I've seen. So I love what you've done with that, Valerie.
Yeah, no, that's a great example of just like how they could integrate you. So yeah, I love that. I wish more companies would do that.
If you think that your system only works when people are in the building, then maybe you don't have a system at all. Right? Like you really have proximity doing the job for you as opposed to like actually having a system work for you. And so, the question isn't, should we allow remote or hybrid work? The question really is, how do we run it as a default operating system, right? So that way it becomes a means of you being able to scale, being able to seek out like more specific or more targeted talent so that way you're not bound by just a geographic territory.
I love that. I love that also because you're like highlighting what you can gain from having remote team members. Sometimes we just think like, oh, it's easier to just have everybody in the office. But by doing that, you're not getting the best talent because the best talent's not always within your same zip code. And they might also leave to work for a company where they can work remote. So maybe it is harder to like redefine your systems, but you have everything to gain by figuring it out and making it work for you.
Agreed.
Completely agree. I mean, it really kind of ends up being where like the question isn't, should we allow remote or hybrid work anymore? The question really becomes, how do you run it as your default operating system? Because that's what it is now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So let's go into building your environment, right? So the reality is like if we've got a system in place that works only when people are in the building, let's talk about what we can build as a playbook. So what that actually looks like as a system itself. How do you distribute it to your team so that they thrive and it's not just a function? So when we realized that the environment had to come first, right? And in your case and mine as well, and then also, Erin, you've been doing this remote since 2016 too. But when you decide and define that your environment has to be defined first, what is it that you have to put in place before your next hire, before your growth plan, or before you even start building? Like, how should you be approaching this idea of prioritizing remote and hybrid?
I think a lot of it comes down to also like clarity in the role and what they should be doing and the results that you want. I like if you don't know exactly what you're hiring for and the results that you want them to be achieving, you're kind of having a remote person walk into chaos.
Right.
And because you don't see them as much, they're spending the rest of the time trying to figure it out and ChatGPT what they should be doing and make it work. And then that's when you kind of get random results. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
And so I think And especially because you're not like over their shoulders watching, right? Like you want them to know what the results are. So that way, if you don't hear from them a couple hours, like, at the end of the day, they're delivering what they have to deliver because you've made that really clear. So I think definitely clarity and expectations is number one.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that when you have clarity and you have what is the direction forward, it makes a huge difference. And I've been in companies like with the remote side where I've been in companies where we have teams that feel super connected, like where we're all remote and everyone knows where we're at. And then I've been on the opposite where everyone's online at the same time, but really nobody is connected at all. What do you feel is the difference in kind of organizations when you have the ones that feel really connected versus the ones that are, hey, we're online. You can see that I've got my green little icon on my Teams, and I'm here, but I'm not really here in a connected way.
I've definitely seen that to be true. I think it also comes down to the mission of your company, and how you're treating your team members. If they're really bought into your mission and you are, showing how they're making an impact, and you're also using that remote world to save on costs and pay them more and be competitive, they're going to be engaged and wanting to contribute and wanting to be part of the team. But if you're not treating them right, you're not a good manager in other areas, people are just doing it to get their paycheck, and they're not going to go the extra mile to make it feel like a really close-knit company. So it definitely comes from the management and how you treat them and how you pay them and the benefits you're also able to provide for them.
I think that holds true whether you're in person or not. So many of the things that we're talking about right now, I could literally say it's important to have these things in place when you're in person. And I can say the same exact thing to say it's important to have these things in place when you're remote or hybrid. And so what I think it also comes down to is having a level of engagement has to also do with a level of corporate transparency. So making sure that you have opportunities that are scheduled and that are available for attendance, and whether they are required or not. Something that we do at Allied Insight is we do a monthly coffee break. It's not required. You don't have to show up for it. I do ask you to show up at least on a quarterly basis because we do some organizational insights where we kind of share some additional information. But what we tend to do in those meetings is we tend to celebrate birthdays, pandaversaries, because we have our panda, a mascot. We also do any sort of life things that have happened in their world. So did they buy a house? Did they get a pet? Did they go on a trip? Did they do whatever? We do high fives internally. So if you want to celebrate one of your coworkers for helping you and assisting you. And these are all things that they didn't happen on day one, but they sort of grew and evolved over time. And as you start creating more of this culture, right, around, and use some structural elements to help kind of support it and keep it bolstered, that's when you really start getting buy-in and you really start getting people who are invested in the space because they care about each other, as opposed to, whether or not I see your green dot on, right? For me, I'm not worried about your green dot. What I'm worried about is the work that you're putting out. And I can tell what your quality is, and whether you're rushed or have time or don't have time, I don't have to worry about your dot. I don't have to worry about keystrokes. I don't have to worry about whether or not your mouse is moving. You're either producing or you're not producing. But when you put those types of opportunities in place, you can see real engagement. So how do you at CRDLE, or have you either, internally done some of these things, or have you even worked with any of your clients in terms of having them sort of create these moments, these pause moments, to make sure that the hybrid team feels included?
I love what you shared, because it wasn't just work stuff that you're getting them together for virtual coffee, but you actually were investing in their personal life. And it's I'm sure that they're showing up so well because they know you also care about them as a human being. Mm-hmm. And not a lot of companies don't do that. So I love that. I think one thing that we've done that's been helpful is all of our team members have access to an account manager. So our account manager meets with our clients once a week, but they also meet with them once a week. And it is something similar where it is not just about did you hit your KPIs this week, but it's how are you doing? What do you have going on? And our team members know that this AM is on their side, right? We're doing everything we can to support them and make them succeed. And so then they're not lost in this remote world where they're just logging in and logging out. They know every week they have someone who's dedicated to their success and someone that they can be more transparent with.
Oh, nice.
I think that's great. I was just curious, do you do that from the very beginning for the onboarding? Because a lot of you, obviously, all of your members are all remote. They're getting embedded into these organizations. So is that like a recommendation where they get paired up with an AM from the very beginning, and then it helps create that experience all the way?
Yeah, 100%. It's actually mandatory to meet with them. And at first they're like, oh, why? Like, why? But then they start to realize like, like this AM really does care about them. And maybe we have some that have been with us for a couple of years. And so maybe it's not weekly. Now it's like once a month. Like they're good. Like they're happy, but they can reach out anytime. And it's just nice to know that like, if they get lost, if they get confused, if the client has something that makes them uncomfortable or is unclear, like they have someone that they can turn to. And yeah, I think that's really important. So for anyone listening, maybe it's not an account manager, maybe it's like your line supervisor, maybe it's an SDR manager, whoever it is, just like a one-on-one, I think once a week with someone that you know has your back and that you can be transparent with. Sometimes with your boss, you have to be a little bit more on your best foot forward, right?
Yeah.
You can't say like, I'm freaking out, I have no idea what I'm doing, right? So you need someone like that they can be comfortable with.
There's a hyena in my face that I have to take meat from, and I don't know what to do right now.
Yeah, but it's just like choose someone where they can be honest with, that can support them and advocate for them. I think it's really important.
Have you seen any of the clients that you work with who are hiring your remote people? Do you have any success stories in terms of like just adopting these concepts and this culture, and like by virtue of them seeing you do and perform the way that you do, that they have adjusted, right? They've made an adjustment to adopt that philosophy. Have you ever seen that?
We've seen a lot of examples, and there's some clients who come to us and they're perfect. Like they know what they're doing. They're so amazing at onboarding remote team members. And we have some who do really lean on us. And so there is this one guy named Josh, and he asked like, what do I do? I've never had 3 cold callers before. I've never had anyone overseas. And I was like, you should do like a daily stand-up with them, like meet them daily. And so he spent an hour a day training them personally. And then after 6 weeks, these 3 SDRs generated $100,000 in closed revenue for him.
Wow.
In how many weeks?
6.
6 weeks.
Wow.
And it was an hour a day. And then eventually now that team's still with him. And now he promoted one of them to be like the SDR manager. So new remote team members are going through her. So like he doesn't have to keep doing that investment. And the reason why I think he was so successful is because he put in that FaceTime with them. Whereas we have other clients who are like, hey, like I hired this remote team member from you, and on day 2, they haven't hit all their KPIs. And I'm like, you haven't trained them. Like, why are they even dialing on day 2, And so it's a lot of clients who are just like, I'm just going to take someone I've never met before, throw them in and expect perfect results. And then there's clients like Josh who are like, I get it takes an investment. I'm going to spend an hour a day spending time with them. And he's super nice and super fun to be around. And then you see that he actually does get the financial investment in the end.
Everyone needs to be like Josh.
That's right.
Take a cue from Josh. We all need Joshes in our life.
I mean, you get what you put in, right? So like you get out what you put in. So if you're really invested and you put that additional time and effort in, the likelihood is that you're going to get a very positive outcome. That's an amazing story. That's absolutely phenomenal. Are there any bits of technology that you've seen sort of come into the space that help outside of like, because Teams and Slack and those kind of things, like they're a chat and they do show availability, right? So they'll show like that green dot if you're available or whatever. But it's more so for like that in the moment conversation. Have you seen any tools or technology sort of come into the space that help people kind of leverage that more human connection element and be able to have that as a part of their playbooks?
We use WhatsApp like almost for all of our clients. I love it. It works great. Like if you have team members who are outside the US and working remotely, you can do the voice notes, video calls, audio, text messaging, like drop documents, anything like that. So WhatsApp has been huge for us. But I think it also comes down to what you naturally like. So if you never use WhatsApp and you're like anti WhatsApp and you only want to do Marco Polo, like which is another app, like do that. Like, you know what I mean? Or use Signal, whatever app. So I think that's also a problem is like if you're onboarding remote talent and then you're now using an app that you never even open and don't like, then you're still not going to be wanting to use them. So if you only like to text message and call, get them like a Google phone number. Like whatever is most comfortable to you and what you're already doing, I think is the technology you should use.
Have you seen more adoption of like virtual office spaces? Are you starting to see that kind of come into this space or not really?
I think there's a lot of talk around it. I don't think my clients are using it.
Okay.
I like what it can do, but I haven't seen too many clients adapt it.
Interesting.
What about you?
Yeah, I don't want to like derail too far, but like I will say like we adopted something called Gather. It's gather.town. Pretty simple software. They do have out of the box office spaces. And here's the thing is that one of my team members brought it to me. I thought it was going to be an absolute waste of time with go-karts and games. But it actually created digital virtual ownership. And I think that when I finally saw human behavior interact where like someone felt like they owned their desk, that like digital desk, it had a huge impact. And so we have been in it now, oh my God, over 4 years. And so everybody logs in on a daily basis. We do our coffee breaks inside Gather. If we want to have a conversation, I might message you in Teams, but then I'll meet you at your desk. And so now what that does is it creates, so if you're working, if your shift is now, you'll log into Gather and you'll keep it running. And then if we're having meetings, you'll see the little characters moving around the map. And what I felt like it does is it creates like the bustle, right? It creates the energy of the office. So between the ownership of the space and then seeing the energy in the office, like people moving around, it changes like how close you feel. Because you almost feel like you're in fact down the hall as opposed to being like maybe on the other side of the world. It's really kind of cool. Yeah.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that.
I'm going to give a visual for people here because, I mean, Jeff has showed me Gather. So think about you being on your computer screen and you have all of these different rooms and everyone, which is their my air quotes, their desk, and every single individual within their Gather gets to create their own desk. They can have their own stuffed animals. I think someone had a cat on their desk or different things like this. Like, I mean, they have the ability to create it themselves. And then with your own little character, you can truly walk through the hall over to someone else's desk, or you can, I think there was like even a coffee room or you had a kitchen in your Gather. You had conference rooms. And so literally it was like you're walking through this map on your computer to see different people, what they have, and then you can actually meet with them. It's very,
it's like
very,
Zelda.
very cool.
You basically like,
So we're going back in time. I love it.
Well, what I love about that is like the person who has like the virtual cat, like you know that next time you meet them, you're going to be talking about their cat and they probably have a real cat, right? So then you're talking to them more personally. And I think that again is like, how do you integrate remote team members? You also have to get to know them personally. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think what we keep saying in different ways is that it can't just be all work, because in an office, you do have those times to have like those one-off conversations about something real happening or about their life. And so, just getting to know someone personally, no matter how you do it, helps integrate remote team members.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if the remote infrastructure is to work properly, right, we need to remove some barriers of entry. We need to create opportunity for people to be able to get involved and feel like they're a part of the community. So once the system is in place and working, what changes about how you think about talent? Like what, you know what I'm saying? Like as you kind of take these companies down this path, how do you see their thought process change?
Oh, it's like a whole new world opens up to them. And suddenly, like there's just so many more opportunities with what you can do and who you can hire. And so, I mean, even for my company internally, now we hire anywhere in Africa. And so like, I know which countries have the best bookkeepers and which ones have the best sales reps. And so, and which ones are really good at certain things. And so it's really fun for me that I get access to like the best talent because I'm not limiting myself to a certain zip code. Mm-hmm. And so you start to see other companies and our clients, like the light bulb goes off, like, wow, actually I have this open role open and, we couldn't find like the right person and now we can. And so it just really becomes limitless with how fast you can grow and scale.
I love that. I mean, I was going to say like I love that so much because like once you actually remove the fact that you have boundaries, like geography boundaries or these invisible lines of being across the ocean or wherever it might be, I mean, then location really stops being a filter. in your search, and you open up the door for so much. And I'm sure you've seen that a lot and have some success stories of all the folks that you've been able to embed into different organizations that are here stateside. And when we're stateside here, when we remove those boundaries, the people that you can embed into your organization just become incredibly strong. And with everything you described, I think that there's some great things when you remove those filters. You can do a lot, as Jeff knows, as you know, Valerie.
I mean, even whether it's domestic or international, I mean, truly, the pandemic, as awful as it was, especially, seeing it, like from my perspective, like my wife is in healthcare. So like seeing what she dealt with was extraordinary. It was a terrible situation, but it did accelerate something for us. And if your time was used wisely, then you likely ended up on the other side of this with a very different perspective, again, even on the domestic front. Like you can be, like I'm in New York City, I've got access to tons of people in New York City, but it doesn't mean that I have to be in New York City. I can be shopping for people anywhere in the country. And when you start to remove those barriers, your potential goes through the roof. And now, just like you said, Valerie, right? Like, well, I need this one thing, but every time I go and look for it, we interview all these people and it just doesn't feel like they're going to serve what it is that we need. Okay, well then you have a choice. You're either going to continue to fish the way that you're fishing. You're going to continue to go to the pond where you are, and you know what fish are in that pond, right? You might get a new one here and there, but for the most part, you know what you've got. Or you're going to invest in actually building a system that supports this like 25% of work that's happening today in the way that it's happening. You develop the system that allows you to cross borders, like I said, either domestically or even internationally. So I guess I'm kind of surprised that the number is not higher than 25%, if I'm honest.
I totally agree. I think remote working is one of the best things that's happened for the small business owner. Not only can you now access great talent, like you said, anywhere in the US or abroad, but you can also just be more competitive. Maybe you couldn't afford to give long vacations like a large company can, but now you can allow your team member to work remote and they can still kind of travel while working for you. And that makes them happier and wanting to stay with you. And so if you look at it as a lens of opportunity, you'll see that there's so many advantages to it.
Totally could not agree more. I mean, really, it comes down to like your talent pool is as big as your infrastructure really allows it to be. So honestly, what kind of happens here is like good systems don't just fix your current team. They remove that ceiling that Jeff was talking about on your next one, which it does amazing things across the board for your entire organization. So I have a question for you here, Valerie, because we always like to kind of see like what could somebody do right now if they were to like do one thing. So if someone was listening and they know that their remote system really needs a lot of work, or they're using someone remote and they've just thrown them in and they're just showing up and they're expecting them to capture every single KPI and hit them on day one. But where would they start right now if they know that they need to like start somewhere and fix one thing today? What would that be?
I would start by re-looking at your training and onboarding for remote hires. I think you want to start them off strong. And I think that's what I see most companies struggle with is they don't know how to onboard and train remote team members. So start there and fix that. Like, do you need an actual training course that they can go through on their own? Is there a trainer that has to be available? Like, what does it look like? But I would start with that, and maybe even just jot down the difference between like, okay, so if someone's in the office and they're starting this position, like what do they see? What do they have access to? What's happening that makes them successful? And then how do you translate that into remote team members as well? I like that we're having this conversation around it's the system that's broken. It's not that remote hires don't work. It's just that your system hasn't adapted for them. So yeah, start from the beginning and get these remote team members started the correct way.
We've mentioned this a couple of times, so I'm just going to kind of like throw a follow-up in here. We've talked about like the unrealistic expectations of hitting KPIs immediately. And what I find fascinating about this is that they probably don't have anybody in their existing company that hit the KPI within the time frame that they're expecting, right? So is there something that you look for that kind of fleshes that out, that like unrealistic expectation with people that you're talking to? And then like, how do you get them to reset mentally? Because not only are you leading with a false expectation, but then you're compounding the unlikelihood of it hitting by putting someone in remote inside of a structure that wasn't built for it. So how do you kind of like get them to rethink this?
It's hard because a lot of people come really stuck in their thinking. Like, it's not hard. It's easy. It just takes a couple of hours, right? I was at a sales conference last week, and there was a sales trainer, like one of the best in the US. And I asked him, like, how do you onboard people? And he said it takes 2 weeks of just training, like just materials, like just about the company before they should even talk about dialing. And that was for like an internal, like in-house US employee, right? So how many companies are willing to do 2 weeks of training before someone starts? And the biggest difference I've seen between clients is that a larger company has the financial resources to hire someone and train them for 2 weeks before they dial. Whereas if you work with a smaller company, sometimes they're like, I have to have that cold caller setting appointments by day 2 because I can't afford them if not, right? And so sometimes I've learned like it's really hard to reset expectations. Sometimes it really comes down to the budget and the size of the company. And that's sometimes why large companies are getting better results than smaller companies, is because they can invest in that training and wait a couple months before they see results.
Wow.
But maybe is that depressing to say that small company? I'm not saying small companies can't do it, but I'm just saying I think you need to be like, if I hire this person and I didn't get any results for 3 months, and then after that it was amazing results, would it be worthwhile?
Sure.
And if you can do, and that's your mentality, like a 90-day ramp up period, then you're golden. But I wouldn't say anything less than that, just to be on the safe side. And maybe they surprise you and by like week 6, they're like killing it. But I would say in your head, think of it as like a 90-day ramp up period.
Well, there's no shortcut, right? Like we're always looking for like the hack. How do we get past it? Like, I've already done this. Like you're tired. Listen, we're brand new. Like we're only 5 years old. I've been through this. Like I don't want to have to spend time training people, but you know what? When you spend the time training people, you end up with better outcomes.
And also, I think a lot of people are afraid, like, okay, then I'm going to spend 2 weeks training this person, and then what if they quit? And it's like a waste of my time. And it's like, well, you can build out videos and courses and quizzes, and you can record the training session so that if that person had to leave, or if you expanded that team, it's not all you again, right? Like you can put someone through this course and it limits your load as well. So be smart about it.
Absolutely.
Completely. I mean, and I love where you're going with this. If you think about it, of starting at the beginning, I mean, it's the onboarding, the training. Question for you, what's like the biggest mistake that you see companies make when they do have, because we've talked about the onboarding, we talked about the training, but what's the biggest mistake you see companies make when they're trying to fix a remote environment, and what should they do instead?
I think one of the biggest mistakes I see is like you don't have one person owning that remote environment. And so like in our case, it's like, okay, maybe the CEO helps out, and then maybe the SDR manager, and maybe this person a little bit. And there's no one really responsible for making sure that those remote team members are successful. So I always find like if you can just pay a little bit more and have someone manage and make sure like all remote team members are doing well and own their success, like you always get better results.
That's fair.
Completely.
I think we've given everybody a lot to chew on here, right? I think we've grenaded their expectations of like just hiring people and making sure that like you're giving people, I think as organizations, it's our responsibility to give people a place that they could land to be successful. Right. And so sometimes unrealistic expectations can sort of muddy the waters and make it really impossible for people to get to another space. If you think you have a system in place and that system is really based on proximity, then it's probably not a system. Like you're probably just working within the framework that you have. And then I think too, like, you know, what's the old expression? Like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? I don't know. How do you like feed a hyena one mouthful at a time, I guess. But like, the reality is that nobody's going to walk away from this like episode and be able to like, you know, revamp and restructure everything entirely, nor do I necessarily think that's a great idea. Let's go a little bit on the fun side though. Let's sort of change gears a little bit. For all the things, like let's say that you were presenting all this, right? You were going to get up and you're going to do a presentation at a keynote or something like that, and you're going to talk about all the importance of like remote and like making sure that people have good cultures, good environments, and everything else. I want to know, what's Valerie's walk-up song? What's the thing that drops that gets you so hyped and you get up on stage and you're ready to go?
One of my favorite songs that I play when I get hyped, maybe it's embarrassing to admit, but it's Fireball by Pitbull. You guys
Amazing.
I love Fireball.
Amazing.
Every time I listen to that, I'm like, I'm in. Like, I can do anything today. I don't know. I love it. Something about it.
I think that's great. Like, so listen, we are starting a highly adaptive playlist. And so we will put,
Love it.
Yes, we're going to put Pitbull's Fireball in there. And that's going to be on our playlist going forward. I love it. That's awesome.
Okay, so fun fact, I think I have Alexa play Fireball at least once a week for me because I'm with you. I like whether I'm cooking, whether I'm like dancing.
It's so good.
It is great. It is such a fun song. I love me some Pitbull in my life, but there's no question about it. So I love that you said that, and I can't wait to add this to our playlist. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Might be on repeat over and over again for me, but okay, Valerie, I want to ask, where can people find you if they have question, they want to get in touch, they want to learn more? LinkedIn what's your website? What's all the fun places that we can get people connected with you directly?
Yeah, I love LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. So you can find me, Valerie Bowden, and I put a lot of tips for remote team members, especially offshore team members. You can also go to our website, cradle.com, or send our team a message at hello@cradle.com. And I hop on calls all the time and I will like audit, like, this is why your team's not doing well. This is why the KPIs aren't working. Like, it's really easy to pinpoint why sometimes remote team members aren't doing well. So I'm happy to do that for any company who reaches out.
And just a reminder for everyone, Cradle is CRDLE.com. So wanted to make sure everyone remembers that.
And you offer an audit?
I'm offering it now. It's not an official thing.
It's in the universe now.
Now it's going to happen. I hate when remote team members get a bad reputation. I'm more in the outsourcing offshore world, so I hate when they get a bad reputation. It's so unfair. And when you look at it, you can really pinpoint, what went wrong. And so we have a lot of people who come to us and they have like PTSD from their last outsourcing experience. And when I listen to it, I'm like, well, that's because of these 3 things. And if you do it again, it's not going to be bad. So I think anybody who's had a bad time, hiring remote, like, you just have to remember you've had bad times hiring in your office as well, but you didn't say like, I'm going to stop hiring people in my office. Like, you realized it was like the person, and you have to kind of do the same thing when you're doing remote too. It might not have worked, but it was a bad setup and you can try it again.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I love this. I mean, look, if you're managing remote and hybrid labor and you realize that your systems haven't kept pace with how the people are actually working, then I think it's worth sending this episode to your leadership team. This isn't theory. This is what it actually looks like when operators actually build the infrastructure from scratch. So I think there's definitely a lot of takeaways that people could have here. And certainly the expectations need to be set accordingly.
Valerie, thank you so much for being here. And I have to thank all of our listeners to Highly Adaptive. We cannot wait to also connect with you on our next conversation and where we're going to go. But until then, I will say, learn from Josh, as Valerie has shared. So be like a Josh. Make sure you put your environment first, your people first, like build it out, and the talent is going to follow. So Valerie, thank you so much for all these amazing tips. This has been great.
Thank you guys. It's been great being here.
Awesome. Big thanks to Allied Insight, not just our sponsor, but an industry leader and preferred marketing partner to staffing and consulting businesses nationwide. If your firm is looking for expert-level support that goes beyond the logo, you know where to go, alliedinsight.com. If this episode helped you, share it with your friends and colleagues and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're there, consider leaving us a review, and when you're ready for more industry insights, articles, case studies, and more, find it on allthingsstaffing.com. This episode was produced and edited by Allied Insight, and the music provided by Home Music Stock. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.